In this video, I'm going to be talking about communication mistakes you're probably making in your ranked games and how to fix them. If you have ever lost a round where you or your teammates have had bad comms, then perhaps this video will help you. And if you already feel like your communication is solid, you still might pick up a few adjustments you can make to help you win rounds. So if you want to know more, stick around. The first mistake I want to talk about is when players are not specific with their callouts, where they give info on what is happening in the round, but because of the lack of clarity in their communication, it makes the team overreact. I'm sure you've had games where on defense, someone says, it's A, and then some or most of your team rotate to A, and then you die to someone lurking mid. In this type of scenario, even if the player is correct in that it is likely an A push, I would recommend to specify how many enemies you hear. If you aren't sure, say how many at the very least are pushing A. For example, if you hear 3 enemy players' footsteps and they're rushing in, don't say it's A, say 3 pushing A, or at least 3A. By adjusting your comms that it's at least 3A or 3 pushing A, you inform your team that hey, there's enemies here, but don't forget that there's 2 missing. And with that call out, play how you want with that information. You can start making this adjustment immediately. But if you notice that your teammate makes this communication mistake, ask them, how many are A? That way, they can also make the adjustment and specify the number of enemies, and your team can have clearer info on how to play the round, which will hopefully result in more rounds and games won. The second mistake is similar. It's about how you call out enemy positions, especially when multiple teammates are reacting to your comms at the same time. Let's say there are 2 of your teammates on a site in different positions. You die on the site and you call out to the rays you're spectating on your left. Because you didn't specify to whom your message is to, and also because you didn't use a call-out location, this can be confusing. This could lead to one teammate looking at a direction when the call-out was not for them. Ideally, it is easier to call out a specific part of the map which is labeled, such as 1 is garage or 1 mid-top. But if you need to specify to someone in particular of where the enemy is, I would recommend mentioning who you're speaking to, such as, hey Rays, there's 1 close left to you, and then pinging it. The reason why I mentioned to say who you're speaking to is because your teammates may be facing different parts of the map, so one teammate's left is another teammate's right. And if they are on different parts of the map and you don't say who you're speaking to, you may get them killed because of the incorrect call to that specific teammate. If you're giving general information to the whole team, start with the map call out, then use the ping to be more specific. For example, saying 1 mid-top, my ping, gets your team's attention on the general area, and the ping shows exactly where in the area. This keeps your comms fast, clear, and easy to act on. The third mistake is calling one shot when the enemy has healing utility or other ways to recover health. We've all had moments where someone calls out one shot, only for the enemy to take a hit and survive. This often happens because players forget to factor in healing agents like Sage or Skye, or self-healing agents like Reyna or Clove. Even regen shields can regenerate health over time, meaning that the enemy is no longer just 1 bullet away from dying. Whether you're giving or receiving the call out, it's important to consider healing potential. If you hear Clove is 1, remember, Clove can temporarily heal. And if you're the one making the call, remind your teammate by saying something like, Clove is 1, but can heal. On the flip side, if an enemy can't heal, that's useful info too. For example, if a Reyna gets a kill but uses dismiss instead of healing, call that out. Calling out this information can set realistic expectations of when an enemy is actually 1 shot away from dying or not. Another aspect to consider if someone is 1 shot or not depends on the gun being used. A common example would be that you've done 120 damage on an enemy. With a Vandal, they are 1 body shot from dying if they're not being healed or are not using regen shield. However, if a person is using a Spectre, a body shot is not 40 damage, it's 26 or 22 depending on the distance. But with the Guardian, it's 65, regardless of distance. So you need to consider what gun is being used by the person you're communicating with. It's important to mention these things because if you or your teammate know the enemy is 1 body shot with a Vandal, they have less pressure to get a headshot and can rely on a body shot instead, which would increase the likelihood of getting the kill. You could also mention on text how much damage you did, so your teammate can make a judgment of what is best for them. However, in an intense situation where there is little time to to type and read the text, consider the different variables mentioned above if an enemy is truly one-shot. Another common mistake is not sharing your plans with your team at the start of the round. It doesn't have to be detailed, just a quick sentence about what you're doing can help your teammate coordinate and play around it. Saying I'm lurking mid or I'm watching flank lets your team know your intentions so they can make decisions with that in mind and adjust their strategy accordingly. If you say you're watching flank, then your team knows not to worry about it. If you say you're lurking mid, your team could adjust how they want to play the round knowing that you could catch enemy rotations. If you're a controller, mention where you want to smoke or ask your team where they want smokes. If you're an initiator, mention if you're going to use your utility early, such as droning close because the enemies push or droning once you approach main. If you're a duelist, mention what utility you would like your team to use to help you enter site, such as smokes and flashes. If you're a sentinel, mention what you're covering. These are a few examples of how a short sentence can help you and your team work together, or at the very least, let them know what you're doing so they know what to expect. The next mistake I want to discuss is about flaming your teammates. Examples could be asking your teammates why didn't they use a specific utility, or why didn't they trade, or why did they not clear site before planting, etc. Yeah, mistakes happen, and it can be frustrating, but I wouldn't recommend telling off your teammates. If your teammate made a mistake and you get annoyed, you complain to them about what they did wrong and you let them know it's their fault you lost a round, do you think it's going to help them? Let's be honest, if your teammate is not in a good mood, complaining to them in that way will possibly cause them to tilt, get angry, and even throw the game. Instead of complaining about it, I would recommend to suggest a solution. For example, if your teammate did not clear boathouse on ascent before planting and you died because of that, instead of telling them off by saying, "Why didn't you clear backside before planting?" or something of that nature, I would recommend to try to keep the team morale up by saying something like, "It's okay, next time we go B, let's clear backside." That way, you are not putting pressure on someone or calling someone out where it could negatively affect their gameplay and mood. Instead, you are giving actionable feedback that the person can take on board without feeling called out or stressed. Also, by saying we, you are including yourself in it, so whoever made the mistake doesn't feel alone and that you are a team, which you essentially are in that game. Next time something like that happens to you or your teammates, take a look at how you or your team responds when one person is put on the spot for a mistake versus how you or your team reacts when you share the responsibility. I would assume the team sharing responsibility is the better way to handle situations like that. Another mistake which may be happening in your games is having your mic on open. Imagine you're in a 1v3 clutch, you get 2 kills and now it's a 1v1. You're locked in, focusing on your gameplay, listening to any sound cues from the enemy, and suddenly you hear a phone notification or someone talking in the background, and this completely breaks your focus and disrupts your rhythm. To avoid this kind of situation, I encourage you to assign a push to talk key and make sure it doesn't affect your movement or aim. That way, you can communicate when you wish to and communicate relevant information. Well, that brings us to the end of the video. I hope it helped. If you know someone who could benefit from these tips, please share it with them. And if you want to show support, please like and comment so the video can reach more people and help more players. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.